Storks, which marks the last episode of this Flying Fridays series. After 16 weeks, I've decided to conclude on a request. Storks, and what a fun ride these birds go on. Warner Animation began its life making the Lego movies, but outside of that franchise, it seems, only made two other 3D cartoons to date, Storks and the equally enjoyable Smallfoot. The stereo in Storks often felt more extreme than it actually was. One thing I've come to appreciate over the 200 or so 3D reviews I've done is that the stereo effect does not exist in a vacuum. It is a handshake with what is actually being watched on screen. The position of the camera, the angle of view, the positioning of subjects can take a little disparity and make it feel as wide as a canyon. And that principle is demonstrated very well in this movie. The characters sell the 3D. They seem to be constantly giving an expression or a pose that just feels big and stretchy. Also, the absurdist style of humor gives an intellectual plasticine feel to the experience. It just feels expansive. Illusions aside, there's plenty to look at even without context. This is enjoyable eye candy. One of the more interesting things that caught my eye was several reflections we get to see. There's what you might call a baby capsule with this round doorway that gives a delightful distorted window that reflects some light back at us. And we also have some rear view mirrors where the reflections are set very deep inside their frame. So often we might get something like this nearly flat or displaying as if it were a little TV. The depth really was attention grabbing. There's also some wide window reflections while we are looking inside this machine. In the context of the movie, it adds value to the moment as it shows onlookers staring at this particular bird's actions. Having it visibly layered on top drives home the point that we are seeing this from their emotional point of view. There are also beautifully rendered shots out in snowy mountains that, although not extreme, give us enough 3D to just appreciate the given landscape. I especially enjoyed this moment where we see our bird friend navigate through these craggy ice bits. And the same can be said of a generous cave sequence that evoked some memories of Lord of the Rings. Although this movie didn't really get very deep, I did really enjoy being in this tunnel. I often complain of flat backgrounds, and I didn't really notice any background with any significant depth here. However, the style of the animation really worked well to keep my eye on the front and center, so looking deep into the screen really was never missed. At a couple of points, we get to see some crowd shots. Always enjoyable in 3D. There didn't seem to be a lot of lingering over them, however, so whether they be a pack of wolves or a conference of birds, they are quickly introduced and not really dwelt on. Story-wise, this one hits hardest in its silliness, which I love. It's bitingly stupid. Not incomprehensible, mind you. Just fun and silly. Occasionally mixing in what you might call adult jokes, but they are not vulgar, making this one of the more family-friendly movies I have perhaps ever reviewed on this channel. Storks is one of those odd movies that had a really good release. It made money, most people enjoyed it, and now, in the present day, is completely forgotten. It has heart, but it's light on the sentiment. It never makes you cry. And we say that's what we want, but alas, perhaps it is that we save our memory the most for the things that make us bleed.